The Visit by Alexander Blackie. The candle on the bedside table flickered briefly, afraid of the dark since a small child. I could not find the solace of sleep without the security of light. "Oh no, please do not go out," I pleaded, terrified of waking alone and defenseless in darkness. I sat up in bed to check if the candle needed replacing. It did not. Only half consumed. Its flame burned steadily, as if recognizing how much I needed its comfort. "Thank you," I breathed. Neck muscles relaxed as relief flooded through me. I watched the candle flame grow brighter, mesmerizing me. I shook my head to escape its power, and as I did so, on the wall behind the bedside table, a shadow crept up from the floor, spreading like an evil genie as it reached the top of the wall, angling across the ceiling until it loomed over me. Blinking to clear my eyes of the fog of sleep, the room temperature suddenly dropped. Shivering uncontrollably from cold or dread, the hair on the back of my neck bristled as I tried to reconcile reality and logic with fantasy and fear. Puzzled, I asked myself, how can this be? There is nothing behind the candle flame to cast such a shadow, and it cannot be mine, even though in my current state of alarm I might be afraid of it. Too terrified to turn round, I shut my eyes tightly, listening intently for the slightest sound which might betray a presence in the room, which remained as silent as a windless desert or a pharaoh's undiscovered tomb. I opened my eyes to see the shadow change shape from a looming genie to a crouching succubus, come to seduce and drain me of my bodily fluids. Soft breath blew on my ear, making my body quiver. Fingers feather soft stroked my chest, tracing their way towards my lower body. Unable to resist, I turned to face my phantom lover. Instead of a beautiful ethereal woman, a handsome man sat on the bed looking down at me. Striking in a military officer kind of way, dressed in a smart blazer with shiny gold buttons, a striped regimental tie and white shirt. His sandy hair, graying at the temples, cut short above his ears, gave him a distinguished look, well-groomed and attractive in a George Clooney kind of way. "I come in many forms," it said, blue eyes bright. Its left eye grew larger as if under a magnifying glass and zoomed in on mine. I could see a large bird like an eagle or a vulture flapping towards me from the center of this eye's pupil, appearing to get larger, but only because it was dragging me inexorably into its depths. I did not have strength to fight against it, as relentlessly it my soul consumed. Transfixed, hopeless and helpless in its thrall, it dragged me to the abyss and an endless fall. A silent scream of terror choked my throat. My body levitated from the bed, hovered like a hunting kestrel, plunged down and bounced back up again to float for 2 seconds before tumbling down again, filling me with dread. Each bounce lifted me like a tiny boat beneath a surging tsunami, ahead and over, waiting to pitchfork to hell, swamped by a mountainous, steepling swell. Then a black void swallowed me whole like a shark devouring a hapless, minuscule fish. My body hurtled from day into dark, arms locked against ears, sensing the slick swish of clothes swirling and thrashing through slippery seaweed as stark dread compelled me to make a death wish, pulse racing, nostrils flared, eyes screwed tight shut, bowels loosened by the fear in my gut. I plunged for what seemed a lifetime before I blacked out, beyond caring, as if dead to the core, deprived of feelings like a mindless lout destroys for fun, or swept ashore like surfers shattered in a last wipeout. Awakening in pitch blackness, I found myself in a cavern, standing in a silence profound. Nothing stirred in the stillness of that place. A strange smell suffused the air, like the incense used in a great cathedral to replace the smell of the poor, to give no offense to God in prayers, and in case the scented rich complained. Still in suspense, I stretched out a trembling hand to feel my way, hoping for that which might allay my fears. Nothing. Darkness wrapped round me like a shroud. Am I blind? I asked myself as my appeals for help echoed mockingly in emptiness. My pleas decreased in volume as hope evaporated and the walls of the cavern closed in tight around me. Clarity returned and rational thought allowed logic to replace fear. Devoid of panic, I assessed my situation. Was I trapped between heaven and hell, in limbo, or the bottom of a well? Looking up, I glimpsed a circle of light as though through the wrong end of a telescope. Stars flickered there, sometimes dim, oft-times bright. Obviously, I wasn't dead nor devoid of hope because I could breathe and possessed good sight. But how to reach those stars without a rope or means of climbing up to them? If in limbo, I would be powerless to escape, but if I were at the bottom of a dry well or bottle dungeon, an exit might be possible if I could conceive of a way to do it. If a well, it might be made of bricks to offer foot or toe holds to climb up on. Reaching out, I felt not brick but a smooth surface of concrete. Tracking round a circular wall, my hands encountered a metal ladder bolted into it. I tentatively placed one foot on the first rung, followed by the other, which proved to hold my weight. Just as I reached the top of the ladder, a heavy access hole cover crashed down, sealing the exit and narrowly missing my fingers. I lost my balance and fell backwards into the void once more, but this time swept inexorably to the edge of a horrifying waterfall and tumbling helplessly like a rag in a washing machine, plummeting down and landing on my bed, which had turned into a terrifying trampoline. Tossed and thrown, all seemed lost until a small, quiet voice whispered in my ear, "Say the Lord's Prayer," which in my naive youth I might have rejoiced to do, but in aged disbelief I did not dare. God forgive me, there was no other choice. But I could not remember the words, I swear, until they seemed emblazoned on my brow. I recited them more in hope than in belief. Straightway the hideous bouncing lessened and the words vanquished the terror, I know not how, until I lay at peace and slept like a newborn baby. The Redundant Crusade by Mitchell Persevera. After what felt exactly like 1,485 years, Arthur was finally beginning to suspect he wouldn't be needed anymore, and that they could all retire just like his men wanted. But just then, the old stone door covering the cave entrance slid open, and they saw a figure silhouetted by the glory of the daylight. Arthur leapt to his feet at once, his chained mail jingling. "Merlin, old chap, it's about bloody time!" Then all his knights jumped to their feet too, and everyone drew their swords and cheered. Huzzah! The figure at the mouth of the cave stepped forward and flipped on a flashlight. When Arthur's eyes adjusted to all the new light, he saw that Merlin didn't look quite the way he remembered. "Merlin, old chap, you have turned into a lass, and a comely one at that." The knights all murmured their approval, not having seen a woman in a millennium and a half. Indeed, they hadn't done much of anything in a millennium and a half, other than sitting on their stools in the darkness of the cave, waiting for the day Britain would need them again. "Well, hey there, fellas," said the woman, with an exaggerated East Coast accent. "I'm Gertie." "Gertie?" asked Arthur. "That's right, and I'm a forest ranger here in the Avalon Wilderness Reserve. And, oh, I'm so sorry, but you boys can't be living in this cave. You can camp with a permit though. Oh, and you should know, we've had a few bear sightings nearby." "Psst, Lancelot Stead. Arthurized is not Merlin." "'Tis not Merlin at all." The other knights all concurred with a chorus of "Ayes," and "By my troths." "You are right, I wager," said Arthur. "'Tis no matter, the seal is still broken, and we are called once again to the aid of our beloved Britain." He turned to the ranger. "Brave Gertie, most breathtaking maiden of the forest paths. Have no fear, for we shall save the day. This I swear to you, for I am King Arthur Pendragon, son of Uther Pendragon, and these fine warriors are my unparalleled knights. And this cave we shall abandon anon, for we've no more use of it." "That's swell," Gertie said. "Thank you, Mr. Pendragon. Oh, there's just one more thing, and I'm really sorry to bring it up, but it's kind of a biggie." "Yes? Well, those things you got, they're not swords, are they? They're not sharpened. You know, you can't just walk around with sharp swords after all." "You can't?" asked Arthur. He looked at his men, and they were all just as perplexed. "Well, surely," Lancelot started. "They're not sharp at all. We don't even have a whetstone down here." The others concurred. "And besides," said Gowan, These, aren't swords at all. They aren't, said Gertie. No, these are. Gowan continued, then pursed his lips, then finished. Knives, big knives, decorative cutlery. Oh, that's all swell then, said Gertie. Then it's settled, Arthur proclaimed. Let us hie back to Britain, save everyone, and finally drive the Saxons back into the sea. Gertie led King Arthur and his knights out of the cave, but alas, their troubles were only beginning when she took them to the Newfoundland coast. They promptly started chopping trees down with their decorative cutlery, intending to build a great ship with which to sail back to Britain. Johnson, mayor of Street Johns, stopped his pickup at the side of the road and told them, "Hey, you can't do that, And then officers Marnie and Clemp arrested Arthur and his knights and took them to Street Johns. This was just as well, as none of the knights had ever built a ship before, that being more Merlin's thing. Arthur found the city overwhelming, with its concrete spires and sorcerous street lights and fire hydrants. When they saw all the horseless metal carriages, presumably propelled by elfish trickery, Galahad fainted. It was all too much, and Arthur used his one phone call to talk to Gertie. They met in the jail's cafeteria. "Gertie, I need your help," Arthur said. "We're in way over our heads here. They want us to pay some kind of fine. Only all I have are Roman denarii, and they won't accept those, and they say we don't have any ID. How could my identity be in doubt?" He unsheathed his sword and raised it high. "I wield bloody Excalibur, don't I? How are we ever going to drive the Saxons into the sea now?" "Oh, Mr. Pendragon," she said, patting his free hand. "I don't doubt you, but you boys are in quite the pickle. Look, why don't you sheath that sword for now?" Arthur did, looking glum. "Things have changed so much, Gertie. I don't recognize Avalon at all anymore." Gertie said. "Well, Avalon's just the wilderness reserve. We call this place Newfoundland." "Newfoundland?" She nodded, then showed him her phone, where they looked at a map of the area. "Newfoundland is part of Canada. See?" She zoomed out, expanding this strange new world, which is part of North America. "And see, here, the whole globe, in your hand. The world's a ball," said Arthur, his eyes wide. "Blimey, I owe Percival a Coke. I think I can help you guys get out of jail," Gertie said. Arthur's face lit up. "Oh, you have my eternal gratitude, fair Gertie." He clasped her hand in his, and she blushed. Gertie was able to negotiate a community service deal for the knights to pay off their fine. This suited them well, for helping communities was their second most important sworn duty, right after driving Saxons back into the sea. They spent a month walking up and down Newfoundland's highways, picking up litter and helping caribou cross the road. Gertie chaperoned, and more she felt herself drawn to Arthur and his stories. And Arthur had no shortage of questions for her, and was amazed at both her breadth of knowledge and her grace. But when the month was up and their debt was paid, she delivered more bad news. "People don't really travel on ships anymore. That's just for fishing or cargo," she said. "But then how shall we ever sail back to Britain? My people need us." "Well, most commonly, people nowadays would take an airplane." "A what?" "An airplane. It's like a bus with wings, and it flies you from one part of the world to another." "By my troth," said Percival. "You mean to say Ized is a dragon?" "No, sorry," Gertie said, chuckling. "The airlines might have beastly customer service, but they're no dragons. Airplanes are just machines, like cars, but they're fast. They should get you to London in just over 8 hours." "8 hours?" said Arthur, and all his knights buzzed. "It took us 3 bloody years to sail to Avalon. What miraculous sorcery! This, the day is saved. We'll show those Saxons what for. Yet, tell me, Gertie, where does one capture such an airplane? And do we need a special saddle?" Gertie sighed. She wanted to help Mr. Pendragon, but the prospect of him leaving was getting increasingly hard to bear. "Well, you don't need to capture it," she said. "But you do need a passport?" And so the brave king and his knights hit their next hurdle. For when they went down to the passport office, it turned out that Excalibur still didn't count as a valid ID. Worse, the government had no records of the knights at all, no birth certificates, no driver's licenses, no visas, no death certificates, nothing. Not only did they not get passports, they were also ineligible for them. "Oh, greatest of woes," said Arthur. "Whatever shall we do now?" "I have an idea," said Gertie. "Only, it might take a while. We've waited this long, Gertie most fair. However you wisely counsel us, so shall we endeavor. You can apply for Canadian citizenship," she said. "That way they would have to give you a passport. Then apply we shall." Alas, the application process was a nightmare the likes of which the intrepid heroes had never faced before. They would need addresses for the mountains of correspondence and paperwork. They would need incomes to show they weren't just a drain on the economy. They would need at least a 7th grade education. And to pass a written test, this new government was labyrinthine and alien, a far cry from the straightforward efficiency of the feudal system they knew and loved. But they grit their teeth and pushed forward. For starters, they decided they would sell jam. They already knew the highways and would set up shop on the shoulders. And of course, everybody loved wild jam. They'd sell by day, and nights they would sit around Gertie's large round table, filling in forms according to her guidance and learning the basics of civics and history. One night, when they had a night off, Gertie asked Arthur if he wanted to see a movie, and so they went to see The Lord of the Rings. Arthur, dearly missing the advice of Merlin, became deeply interested in Gandalf. "What a magnificent wizard," he said. "I simply must find him. He shall counsel us most wise." "Oh, Mr. Pendragon," Gertie lamented. "I'm so sorry I've misled you. The story isn't real. It's like a play. Gandalf isn't a real person." "Oh, I see," said Arthur, growing quiet. But then he looked up at her with a warm gaze, and he took her hand. "No matter, what use are wizards, when I have the privilege of your company?" Again, Gertie felt her cheeks run hot. And they spent the rest of the evening grinning at each other over popcorn. Time went on. The jam business brought in a decent penny, but Lancelot saw an opportunity to move faster when he took a job as an assistant manager at a Timmy's. Shortly after, Kay and Yvain decided to try their luck on the lobster boats. And so it went, the knights gradually parting ways and following their own paths, until only Arthur and Gertie remained selling jam on the highways. They all still met every Saturday night around Gertie's big round table, going through whatever fresh forms the government required. And they ended each night reaffirming their dream of driving the Saxons back into the sea. But they saw less and less of each other. Naturally, big events brought them together, like when Kay and Yvain bought their own lobster boat, or when Galahad's kid made the Little League team. And of course, when Arthur and Gertie tied the knot. It was a big old party they threw, inviting the whole neighborhood over. And then, finally, when their forms were all submitted and approved, and their hard work paid off, they became Canadian citizens together. In all, it had taken just over a decade, but the king and his knights were proud, and more to the point, happy the ordeal was behind them. "Good show, men," Arthur said. "Jolly good show, we've finally done it. Now all that's left is to get our passports. Then we can finally fly over to Britain and drive the Saxons back into the sea." As always, Arthur raised Excalibur high into the air, but unlike always, his men weren't as enthusiastic this time. Instead, murmuring half-heartedly, Arthur looked around at his knights, and he saw that they had all come with their new families, their new friends. This week, Gawain had custody of his kids, so the little tykes cheered him on. Caradoc took a break from filming to go through the citizenship ceremony, and he was there with his supermodel girlfriend. Lancelot, now a VP in a major agribusiness conglomerate, had attended with his team of executives, and so it went, each man stamped with the life they had lived. Arthur lowered his blade and smiled sadly. They had waited 1,485 years with him, and then a decade longer. Men, you have served me well. I could not have asked for a better band of brothers in arms. He took a deep breath. I hereby release you from your oaths. The knights nodded solemnly, blinking back tears and smiling. Nothing more was to be said. They bumped chain-mailed fists with Arthur, as was knightly tradition since time immemorial, and all went their separate ways to live their separate lives. "And what shall you do, Mr. Pendragon?" Gertie asked. "I shall continue my quest as ever, my love. I shall return to Britain and drive the Saxons into the sea." Gertie grinned. "I think a vacation sounds lovely." The year it took to get a passport was a pittance compared to the citizenship, and Arthur used that time to get back into shape. Before they knew it, their flight was taking off, and a mere 8 hours later they landed at Heathrow Airport in London. It turned out that Britain had changed somewhat in 1500 years. For one, compared to London's street, John's no longer quite seemed the sprawling metropolis it initially had. Next, it had taken Arthur a good while to get used to cars back in Newfoundland, and now here, it turned out everyone drove on the wrong side of the road. Beyond that, though, there was an impossible amount of people. People cheered when they saw him, and they snapped photos and asked for autographs. And then they went on about their day, heading back to the shops, or work, or the next celebrity sighting. And not once, in any time, nor any place, did Arthur see a Saxon. "My love," he said, plopping onto a park bench. "Has it all been for naught? Did I wait too long? Do they truly have no more need of me?" Gertie rested her head against his shoulder and interlaced her fingers with his. "Some people need you, Mr. Pendragon." She beamed at him. "I need you." It was enough to raise his spirits, and they shared a kiss. "Now we've come all this way," she said. "What do you say we just enjoy the rest of our vacation?" "I'd love that." They toured the city of London and saw all the sights to see. Arthur gorged himself on exotic street food, and Gertie snapped photos of everything. When they popped into a Tesco, they ran into the sitting British monarch, outdoing his groceries, and the two kings spent an afternoon talking shop. Finally, Arthur and Gertie decided to round off their vacation by spending some time in Salcombe to enjoy the lovely beach weather. Arthur had come to terms with his career being over. As he walked down the pier, holding hands with Gertie and breathing in the fresh salt air, he realized he was fine with it. Perhaps he never got to drive the Saxons to the sea, but he was fine with it. He was satisfied. No, more than this, he was happy. Britain was free, after all. And now so was he. They stood at the end of the pier for a good long while, just watching the distant boats and swooping gulls. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," she said. Then, "Oh, this is funny. I think you'll get a kick out of it. I got curious and I did one of those ancestry things, and wouldn't you know it, turns out I'm part Saxon." Not missing a beat, Arthur stepped back, placed his hands on her shoulders, and shoved her off the pier. And then he dove in after her, and they shrieked with laughter like rioting children until the sun set. The Good Worst Choice by Julia Tokarczyk. I stood there. Knowing the consequences, I still stood, not moving anything but my mind. But even that was almost still. I am numbing myself from reality. If I choose, I will be held responsible. How can I hold myself high with confidence when the weight of a decision is pulling me down? I cannot choose to throw away what is good. But am I even choosing to throw it away? Or am I preserving it? We are given opportunities to change, and with those opportunities, it almost always seems that the chances are to be hoped for. But what if the opportunity is good enough that it can make it bad? I am faced with that, the good worst choice. If I have to make my future, I should make it a fulfilled and steadfast one. If I have to let fate make my future, I should live it freely. If I choose to believe I am preserving some parts of my future life, then the answer is clear. I can do what is surely good. The good that is reliable, that isn't settling. I can always have new interests and therefore new options. This might be even better than what I am narrowing my vision to right now. I can choose, as long as I have support. But the ones who offer support to go do it without any understanding. Because of this, unfortunately, they are not to be trusted in my mind and also in the minds of the others. These others are the ones who support their reality of me leaving this platform, meaning they support the life I have. I am grateful for both, but doesn't it seem a little obvious what the answer should be? To take the risk to live a life outside of what is already known. To not be stuck, right? To be stuck, just for a little while, could further the height I could jump in this reality. But what am I missing? What am I not living? The dream I am pursuing is a dream to everyone outside of my head, but it is a reality to my conscientious, carefree, independent mind. Why should I let that go? When I am given chance, I am still standing. Only a couple of breaths have gone by, unlike the dozens of the established decisions that the people have while passing me by. They walk with their disposition to the platform. They move with the procedure. But I saw that some did not. Some hesitate. But not like me. I am stuck. They have come here already knowing, even if they want to say they were unsure. I am stagnant, unable to help myself. This hurts to decide. It might hurt me to fail. It might hurt others for thinking that they should save me from failing. Why should it be their burden that in turn becomes mine? Why should I feel the anxiousness of their anxiety? I could go, it doesn't matter where. I could physically be right next door, but it would still be a change. Would they still feel as anxious? I know they would. Is this me feeling trapped? Or is that still just my presumption? I could avoid those who I live with on a regular basis and not too many words are spoken about how they want to see me. But, suddenly if I were to still not be physically in front of them, it only becomes a problem when there can be no immediate return for them. If I couldn't come back with just a casual invitation, them saying, "When you come home, grab some groceries," that sentence will no longer be their reality. They can't. Is this what scares them? I know to a degree it's what I want. I want to be cared for without the obligations of a short distance. Is this selfish of me? It's like Schrodinger's cat. They don't know what they don't see. And that scares them. But it doesn't when I am in a certain radius. How could I relieve them of this? I don't think I can. How can I accommodate the feelings of everyone? Can I? I could try. Should I? Still frozen in thought. This is still what is racing through my mind. One decision fighting the other to the finish line. But remember, this is a timed race. I know I cannot make this decision on adrenaline without any regard to what I have just thought. So let me think some more. Let's speed this up. I will do it. I will hope. I will strive. I will. I will. I will. Fail? I can't. I won't. I will be safe where I am. I am still happy. Right? But it could be better. I could see what those around me had not. I could hear and feel and taste what they have not. I want to go. But if I leave, even for a short while, I might be missing what I have right in front of me. I would miss the education which could take me places even higher. I would miss the people around me experiencing new things. I would be excluding them from my life, even for that short while. What if a man I am supposed to marry is only a city away from home, but I miss the chance to meet him? What if I miss the opportunities to deeply root myself into the culture around me? But what if I meet that man while I am away? Would I find the different cultures which accepted me deeply? I could always be in the lives of those who care, simply because of the fact they care. Do you need to be with those people physically? Or does it matter more to have unconditional support? I should test my limits. It might test theirs, but it is my choice, right? Or is it yours? Fate. I have understood at this point. Knowing the chances, knowing the consequences. I took my step forward. Then the train passed. Thank you for reading this. I'm sorry if there are any grammar or spelling mistakes. I know that my computer sometimes puts random periods. But anyways, I am a new writer. I am here with the purpose to explore the unconscious side of me, and wow, this is my real situation and I really don't know how to make this decision. If some of you have any opinions about what I should do in the character's situation, then please tell me. Also, I want to know if the ending was clear. I don't want there to be a definite ending. The character makes a decision and it is not clear if they had missed the train or had taken the step onto it while it left. I want to know from more experienced writers if I conveyed this correctly.